Welcome back from vacation, Dalton.
Hey, thanks, man. It's glad to be back. Do I look more tan?
You look more
Something.
yeah. Well, here I am. Hey, I dressed down for this one.
It looks like, yeah, well, I'm a little disappointed that you're not wearing your traditional tie.
I am too.
Did you do that on purpose because...
I wanted you to feel more comfortable, as it were.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
But truth be told, I'm never really comfortable around you.
Yeah,
So.
this is what I would wear to recreate.
You're on vacation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if I'm going fishing, I would take the tie off. Yeah, here we go.
Back from the beach.
Right, let's have a good time. Okay. So this episode is going to focus around audio detection,
Okay.
layered technology
Yep.
within a real-time policing program, within a department, some things that are associated with certain elements of technology and audio detection. So let's talk about that first. Let's dive right into audio detection. Tell us a little bit about what it is.
Let's dive in. So audio detection, we're talking about sensors out in the field that detect audio. And I think the most prevalent one, obviously, that most people will associate this with is gunshot detection.
Okay.
Right? Sensors that detect gunshot. They've been under attack a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of news stories out there talking about the value. And, you know, I think we should just start there. Like, let's just dive right in.
Why are they under attack?
Let's dive into the controversy.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm actually going to read an article. I brought an article. Because,
Did you now?
Yeah, because I'm really bad at making stuff up. So I'm actually
I don't read, so that's good for you. Man.
AP News article, I got this.
Well done.
So, a gunfire location and detection system long used by the New York Police Department and other law enforcement agencies nationwide is sending police officers to respond to loud noises that don't turn out to be confirmed shootings 87% of the time. The city unreleased. Paraphrasing here, the low rate of confirmed shootings means police officers spent thousands of working hours responding to unfounded reports of gunfire. The evidence shows that NYPD is wasting precious time and money on this technology, and so on and so forth. So,
yeah, and again, that's an AP News article.
yeah, and let me just say, like, this isn't directed at any one vendor. Like, this is true of the technology, in you know, as a whole.
Right.
So, there's a lot of questions out there about its value.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to cover.
Yeah.
Is it valuable?
Yes. Efficacy is a hard thing to define, right? Yeah. And and that goes to any technology, and value a hard thing to judge. And so, again, let's assume that this reporter is Philip Marcello. Let's assume that his article is confirmed.
Yeah.
87% of the time they're not shootings, et cetera. That means 13% were, right? Of those 13% that were confirmed shootings, what did that technology, this is rhetorical to some extent, what did that technology help do in the resolution of that particular event, right? So did it lead officers to an area to locate a victim that, had they not been there fast enough, that victim would have died?
Yeah.
But because they got there, that victim didn't die. So again, you talk about efficacy and you talk about value and what is worthwhile, what's not worthwhile, et cetera. 13% of 1,000 is a lot of shootings, right? 13% of 100 in some cities, a lot of shootings. And so I'm on that side of, if that number is legitimate, I'm on the side of, let's talk about the 13%.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, I would honestly say, and not knowing the full scope of this article, I would suspect that it says 87% of the time they're not confirmed shootings.
Yes, right.
That means somebody was hit.
Maybe, right?
Yeah. Theoretically, possibly, I don't know this for a fact, maybe 50% of that 87% were legitimate shootings.
Yeah, right.
But nobody got hit. Okay, you with me so far?
Yeah, or they couldn't confirm it was a shooting.
Yeah.
Meaning simply they just didn't find
any shell casings
right.
or no victim because nobody got shot.
Right.
It doesn't mean that these things aren't happening.
So it could increase that 13% could increase marginally or exponentially.
Yeah, I actually have a good story on that while we're talking about it. It's not directly related to the gunshot detection or the audio detection, but it does paint a picture of what we're talking about. In the crime center a long time ago, we would get a whole bunch of shots fired calls at these high crime spots.
Yeah.
And, when I was an officer, I used to go to those all the time, and almost exclusively, almost every time, if there was not a follow-up call about somebody's on the ground, we'd go out there and there'd be nobody there.
That's right.
Nobody. So the assumption that we had was it's not a good shooting.
Right.
It's a prank call.
Yeah.
They're faking it just to waste our time.
Yeah, the reporting party heard a firework that obviously wasn't a shooting.
Yeah. Or even if they say there's somebody driving down the road shooting at people,
Yeah.
and then we show up and there's nobody there. The assumption is it's not legit.
That's right.
Well, what we found out in the crime center, we started putting cameras at these places, and we saw a bunch of people hanging out. A car would drive by, a guy hanging out the window, shooting. Everybody scatters, and there's nobody.
Shell casings in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Shell casings in the car, and everybody's gone. An officer shows up, there's nobody there.
Right.
So we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is a legit shooting, just nobody got hit.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that percentage, that stat is probably a little skewed.
Could be.
And there's a lot that's not being said about that number.
Yeah, could be. And I think that's any level of reporting, right? You have data that you have access to, and you have to interpret that data to infer whether or not there's efficacy to that program, right? So I'm going to just assume that the article, that the reporter reviewed data, and in their research, they believe that this data leads to this conclusion, right?
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about how do you measure it? How do you measure value?
And
what
that's
if those 13%, what if 20 of those were people that got shot? What if they were kids that got shot? And because you got that, the ambulance showed up and saved them.
So let's use that, right? So how many, again rhetorical, but just to prove a point, how many times in our careers while we were in law enforcement did we have homicides that were never reported as they happened, right?
Yeah.
Meaning a shooting where there's a guy now laying dead on the street somewhere and not a single person called that in.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't see anything.
Right. Until somebody came across them later on, is like, hey, there's a guy over here.
Yeah, it's far too late at that point.
Right. And so if you think about that, just the concept that, again, had there been something in place that identifies something as a shot being fired, and that is now relayed to the police department, and the police department make an exigent response to that area, as exigent as it's warranted to be in their agency, and they come across that guy on the road, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Is that not valuable?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where.
Put a price on that.
Right. And that's, and I think that, like everything, there are two sides to even that argument, right? But the efficacy on something like this, coming from the 911 world, I know that many of the tens of thousands of dispatchers out there in our country would agree with what I am about to say, which is not everyone calls when they should, and many times no one calls when they should, right? And a lot of people call when they shouldn't.
Yeah, well, I was going to follow up.
Right.
A lot of people call when they shouldn't.
And so when you think about how can we help our dispatchers in this part of the country, our telecommunicators, right, do their job more effectively, do their job more efficiently, this is a way, right? This is a way. It's no different, in my opinion, to ALPR. We get something that tells us there's something we should investigate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's basically just an alert to say, hey, you might want to pay attention to this.
That's right.
It's just information.
Yeah.
Where license plate readers give you information on license plate.
And these systems are evolving, right? So gunshots, prevalent reason why the system was developed.
Yeah.
But now, we talked about smart engineers before, that which we are not.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are smart engineers at companies everywhere that are looking at how else can we leverage audio detection in a good way, right? How can we differentiate fireworks versus shots? In some communities, fireworks are worse as a quality of life issue than shootings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, true.
And so that's where, the development of this, the increased technology, the enhancements to what's happening now, I don't know. I read that article even as if I take my law enforcement hat off, which I'll admit is hard to do,
Yep.
but if I take that off, I read that article and I think 13% is good. I think that, right? Because that means we found 13% of those calls to be, as in this terminology, confirmed shootings, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But I think that you and I probably do agree on one thing in that, yes, it is valuable. And especially if you extend it to other sounds that may potentially be associated with criminal activity.
Yeah, right.
But you probably shouldn't lead with this technology without other things already in place. Would you agree or disagree with
So
that?
meaning that if you're an agency with zero in the field infrastructure,
Yes.
audio detection shouldn't be your first.
That is what I am saying. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Tell me why you think that first.
Okay, so
before I answer that.
Because in my point of view, if you go put out audio detection in an area and you start getting alerts, and it's completely justified, like they're real gunshots, and let's just even assume that nobody dials 911, so it's doing exactly what it says. That doesn't help you get an investigative lead. It just tells you when that shot was fired, where that shot was fired. Which, I mean, you could, go through the investigative process and develop a lead.
Sure.
But it doesn't tell you, like, who's leaving the area. What car was he in? I mean, how many of these jump in a car or were started from a vehicle?
Right.
So it doesn't actually provide you with any bit of information, evidence-wise, to definitively say this person, this vehicle, whatever was involved. It's just, here's a sound, go there.
So admittedly, I didn't read the whole article, so it could be in there. I want to put that out there. What I would love to know, and I will read this article because maybe I'll know it afterwards, but what I would love to know is of the 87% of the calls that were not confirmed shootings, how many of those calls also had a human caller reporting the same thing to that agency? Right? So to answer your question, I don't disagree with you. I think if you have an area where shooting is prevalent and you need to mitigate that, then it makes absolute sense to have this layer. But ALPR, once again, is probably the right way to go to begin, if you can't do it all at once.
I mean, honestly, I would say all three. I mean, and this kind of goes back to the thing that we talk about layered technology and why layering is so incredibly important. Because, hypothetically, you have a neighborhood that is experiencing a ton of gun violence, and you put out audio detection in that neighborhood, and you get an alert. And you've got every point of egress and ingress covered with license plate readers. You still don't know what car that is. I mean, if it's a busy area, there could be 50, 100, 200 cars.
That's right.
So if you also throw in live cameras, now you're seeing where the vehicle's traveling. Are any of them going 80 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour side street? That's a pretty big clue.
I mean, how do you layer? How do you decide how to layer as an agency? Because, if I am the chief executive of an agency and I say, I don't tell people this, but I have X number of dollars I can spend on technology this year that's going to help us with this issue. How do I determine how many ALPR I need, how many live cameras I need, where to place the live cameras in relation to the ALPR, how much audio detection I need, and I also have a finite budget, right? Do I spend all of that on ALPR? Do I spend some on that? And is that effective, right? Is it effective to limit the number of this one technology layer to enhance the other?
I mean, it's obviously case by case because as you all know, every single police agency, every single city, their unique crime problems are unique to them. I mean, you can say this person's got gun violence and this person's got gun violence, but it's still going to be different because it might be one's at an apartment complex, one's at a park. So I think the important thing is for police leaders or the people that they empower to make these decisions, understand the best strategy for putting these things out there.
And I would admit that that's probably one of the hardest things for police leaders to gauge.
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of the biggest struggles.
Yeah.
What do I need? I know I need all of this, and if I have it, it's going to do this.
Yeah.
How can I get it, and when is the right time?
Yeah.
And what do I do with it?
Well, and I think it's important for the agencies themselves to have a deep understanding of this also, because the alternative is that they're relying on who to tell them?
Yeah.
Vendors.
Right.
People selling them things.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and you shouldn't rely on that. Regardless of the company, you should not rely exclusively on them
Yep.
because they're going to tell you what you want
Which,
or what you need.
not to digress too much,
Yeah.
but exactly why the National Real-Time Crime Center Association was founded. Right?
Okay.
It was the concept of, at my last agency, we worked very well with our technology partners. We called them partners, right? Because we wanted to do things right, and we wanted to be valued as an agency and value their technology to help us on our mission. If you as an agency don't vet every single piece of technology that comes through, you have done a disservice to many people.
Yeah.
Right? And by vetting, I don't mean just find 3 or 4 agencies with the same technology. Find everybody out there, and then find 3 agencies for each of the technologies, right? And get their take.
Well, on top of that, there's a difference between vetting it for does it actually do what they say it does, and vetting it for it does exactly what they say it does, but it doesn't actually have the value that they insinuate.
Yeah, there's a piece of technology in mind. I love these guys, and I won't mention who it is, but their technology is so good. I mean, so good.
Yeah.
And agencies use a fraction
Yeah.
of what that technology can do.
Yeah.
Almost across the
they've
board.
paid a lot of money because the perception is that I'm going to use that all the time and it's dramatically going to improve
Right.
X, Y, and Z. And the reality is that it's hardly ever used.
It's not a vendor problem,
Yeah.
right? On that one, it is not a vendor problem.
Yeah.
It's the agencies just don't leverage it as much as they could. So I mentioned I wouldn't digress too much on that, but that is something that when it comes to the technology layers that you do get and you bring into your agency, it would do you some good to ensure you create an internal expert in that technology or two. And then part of their charge should be, we should use this 100% to its capability.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, if you don't, why do you have it?
Yeah, exactly. And also take a hard look at what you currently have. This is something I think a lot of agencies don't do because they want to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
They may have contracted with XYZ company
Yeah.
at some point in the past and nobody's using it.
Yeah.
And they're continuing to renew that contract, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You
this
just
is
shouldn't
not
pay for
point-
what
this
you
is
don't
not
use.
pointing out anybody specifically.
Yeah.
But this is pointing out our experience with law enforcement because you've seen it and I've seen it.
Right.
To where
You don't pay for what you don't
why
use.
are we paying for this? Because nobody's using it. We could
Yeah.
take that and do this
Sure.
and get a whole lot more bang for our buck
Yeah.
with
I mean, that's
lowering crime.
That is literally my job with Flock as part of my consulting job, right? Is to help agencies run efficacy evaluations on their technology stack to determine if what they currently have is what they need. And that's all pieces, right? And what they might find is that they need to enhance some, they need to decrease some, or they might be just fine, right? Whole Goldilocks theory, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you don't know if you need more if you haven't figured out if you need what you have,
Right.
right? And so audio detection to me, same thing, same theory applies. And with the enhancements to the capabilities of audio detection, it's going to enter a market, if it hasn't already, enter a market where it's now being marketed to agencies for different reasons, not just gunshots, right? And so that's where I go back to the concern of the article, and I will never suggest that the article isn't accurate. Just the concern of the article, I go back to that because,
What's the other side of the story?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question.
Well, let's
right?
talk to the people on the receiving end of those and get their story.
Well,
I'm
and there's so
alive
much more
today.
data.
because of this.
Yeah. So there's the human element.
Yeah.
And then there's so much more data point that you could probably gauge, to see, like I mentioned before, how many humans called in those same shots, and how does that look on the 13% and on the 87%? I'll say this as politically correctly as I can. I came from another agency that I worked for where that constituency, if someone passed gas too loud, someone's calling in a shots fired call, right? And so we were running to quote unquote shots fired calls that obviously
what kind of restaurants are in
I
this
tell you
city,
what,
Jamie?
man, some
Lord.
tasty ones, man. When you first hit them, it's good. Afterwards, it's not. No, it's that's the concept though, is you're relying on humans to report about things that they're probably mostly unfamiliar with, being able to emphatically determine that is that, right? They hear boom, their mind immediately goes to gunshot, they call the police.
Yeah.
Audio detection through machine learning is hearing boom and saying, okay,
That's a
that
transformer
is,
blowing
yep,
out. That's
that's not
a firework.
this,
That's a tire
right?
blowing up.
And so there is absolute value to that.
Yeah.
So let's hit the solve story on this.
Yeah,
on
because
this,
I'd
and
rather hear Katie speak than you. So let's do
honestly,
that.
that's not true.
Yeah.
That nobody wants to hear Katie speak.
Take
But
us away, Katie.
Either way, go ahead, Katie.
Today's success story comes from Albany Police Department. So, at night, they initially get a Raven alert. Now, before we talk about the actual story, let's pause that Raven alert and talk about how technology can be used together to build a stronger case and make a safer community. We have Raven gunshot technology, we have Falcons for LPR, we have wings that can integrate different cameras, turn them into LPRs, provide live views. All of these things make for a really strong real-time policing environment that can help build a case and help support officers. So in this case, that Raven detection comes in first. One single gunshot in this neighborhood, officers respond out to it, they drive around and they don't see anything suspicious or out of place. Now this isn't uncommon, right? If major crimes don't happen outside, we don't know what's happening inside of homes unless somebody reports it. So they clear the scene, they haven't found anything. Shortly after, they get a call for service saying that a suspect claimed to have shot his ex-girlfriend at a house in that same area. Officers respond out to that area, and they do in fact find a deceased female in the home. Now it turns out that the gunshots that occurred inside the home were all inside, and therefore not detected on our radar software. But because Raven didn't detect those outside shots, what it did do was detect the one shot that came from outside into the home. That allowed officers to piece together a really strong timeline on what exactly happened and when. From there, that helped build the case and build upon more and more leads. So they used Flock to track that vehicle down to a neighboring agency where they were able to notify them of that suspect vehicle in the area and make a good, safe apprehension of that suspect. Without technology, both our Raven product, our Falcon product, but just the overall incorporation of a technology strategy in the department, this case would have been much harder to solve and justice would have come much slower. Back to you, Jamie, and back to you, Dalton.
All right, welcome back. Jamie's texting again or TikToking. I'm not sure what you're doing.
Busy guy.
Yeah, you
A
are.
busy guy. Let me put this away.
My
and
phone
give my
doesn't
full
ring.
attention to Katie.
Yeah,
And
who is much
her
better at this than you are, by the way, and me too. Really, for that matter.
I'm sure the reviews of this podcast will be Katie
more,
was
more
good.
Katie.
Yeah,
We just
Katie
need
was
more
good.
Katie. That's
Yeah. If you guys
like-
could just get rid of the clowns, we'll
like
be
the
okay.
first 25 minutes, not so great.
Right.
The 2 or 3 in the middle, great.
I just fast forward to that part now. Did you actually have hosts?
So good story. Yeah, this is a good one to talk about. Like, it kind of falls in a weird area
It
because
does.
they got the alert,
Yeah.
didn't find anything,
Right.
come back later and determine, yeah, they actually did find something because, I mean, it's hard to find a single shell casing
That's right.
in the dark
Yeah.
on a house property. Like,
Yeah.
so would that have counted as not legitimate? I mean, yeah,
right.
it is legit. I mean, they solved a murder because
So
of it.
at the end of the day, that case would show that it's a confirmed shooting simply because it was located later on, right? And
Yeah.
but let's say that shell casing wasn't, right? And then let's say the person that got shot didn't die there, or didn't, no report of it anywhere. But let's say that they went to a hospital and just dropped off at a hospital in a different jurisdiction.
Yeah, and nobody knows where did you come from.
No
Maybe
clue.
they're unconscious.
Yeah, because, this happens all the time. A dispatch center calls another one and says, hey, do you guys have any shooting victims you're missing?
Yeah, it happens all the
Because
time.
We had one stumble into this hospital and they're deceased now.
Well, and especially this was one shot.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably pretty easy for somebody to overlook a single gunshot. Like, what
For
was
sure.
that? What was
Right.
was that a
I
shot?
mean, we build our homes to insulate from outside noise, right? I mean, that's the goal.
especially gunshots.
Yeah, we don't necessarily want to hear everything that's happening outside, and so if there is a single non-shotgun style shot, you may not hear that.
Yeah. See, this one is especially interesting to me because, like, it's easy to show. We're talking about efficacy. Did I say that one right?
It's close enough,
Okay.
man. Everybody knows.
So we talked about that, and like it's easy to measure. Like, okay, I got a gunshot alert, and I showed up, and a guy has been shot, and we saved his life because we got there early. That's easy to measure.
Sure.
But this is different because they use this as like to pinpoint the time
Yeah.
that shot came in,
Yeah,
and match that up with other pieces of a puzzle.
yeah, Yeah. If your case is, it has to be circumstantial to an extent. This is imperative
Yeah.
that you are able to establish a time of occurrence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
By the use of proven technology. This technology is proven, right? It's proven to work,
Yeah, it does work.
right? And that's that's the piece that,
I don't think there's any question about that. It does work.
yeah. And let's go back to layering your technology, right? If you have that, and if you have ALPR, and if you have live cameras, there's a chance that you would have seen something
Yeah.
on one of those or both of those pieces of other technology that would have helped you.
Yeah, generally when people shoot somebody, they don't leave at a normal rate of speed.
Generally not.
They're usually flying.
Yeah.
And it's easy to see that on camera.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
Right. It stands out. And again, that's what we call a clue.
Yeah, that's what detectives
It's-
call a clue.
That's right. Other technology layering thoughts as far as, what enhances what? And by that I mean, what other technologies are out there that we should consider in the real-time space?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any question that live video and ALPR
Yeah,
are like
right.
It's like the gold standard
Yeah.
in terms of pairing.
Most of
those
us are going to agree on that.
Yeah.
100 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I would say, some interesting combos would be audio detection and drones.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Hadn't thought of that.
Shot fired,
Yeah.
drone goes to where shot is being fired,
Yeah.
and is overhead within 30 to 60 seconds.
Would that be as controversial if we rewrite this article and we don't send a police unit, but we do send a drone?
to confirm if it's shot?
Would it be as controversial? I don't know that there's an answer to that, but it's, that.
I think it's case by case. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, if you see a big group of people and a guy laying on the ground,
Yeah.
you know what's going on. But drones can't search for shell casings
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing would surprise me.
More
at this
to
point.
come.
Yeah.
More to
I
come.
mean, AI is going to take over and kill us all anyway, so maybe
Yeah.
that's coming.
There you go.
Well,
Well, I mean, anybody that sees Dalton or I next time that you see us, let us know what you think about that, about the drone responding on an audio detection. And would that be as controversial if the efficacy of that was 87-13, right? Something like that.
Well, I mean, what other? Do you have any others? Any other layered?
Yeah, I mean,
Combos?
it's, we used facial recognition at...
This is a whole other episode.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and
You're going to
you
start
know,
this now.
We should probably have a facial recognition episode. No, we use that, but we used it in combination with, and successfully used it in combination with live cameras that were able to zoom in on a suspect that was in a wanted vehicle and then compare that to publicly available social media and publicly available internet data to determine who that person was, which ultimately helps law enforcement determine, do we get a warrant for this person or do we try to detain this person now? So there are layerings, and again, you hit it. That's controversial too, right? Everything that's in a real-time center except the people are generally controversial.
Well, I would argue that you're controversial.
I'm likely to be
So
controversial.
they're going to follow you around.
Yeah, I do like the Buffalo Bills. That is a controversy.
Go Cowboys. All right. So, any parting thoughts before we let you go back to vacation and lay on the beach?
No,
in your shirt
I am
without no
comfortable
tie?
right now. I appreciate that. This was a good episode. I'm gonna go read this article and educate myself some more on that. But no, good episode.
Okay, I like it. Well, we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. See everybody next time.